Good morning, everyone. Very early morning if you are on the West Coast. Oh, it's very cold in my gym right now. It doesn't help that I have wet hair, but I had a nice shower this morning, so I feel good. About 11:30 if you're here, Eastern Standard Time. If you're in New Zealand, I have no idea. I think you might be sleeping. So stretching was requested earlier in the week by Allison to go over with you guys. So you have some basic videos that I have already given you. So that's like just a basic post-workout stretch, and you also have a band stretching video. I really love the band stretch simply because there's certainly different kinds of stretching, right? There's just your static stretch, which is what we kind of typically think about, like let's go into a position and hold it for a little bit. And there are some advantages to doing that, especially if you're looking at trying to correct different imbalances and stuff in your body. But the weird thing, I guess, about static stretching is, and you guys have probably experienced this at some point in your life. I remember when I was in dance in high school, and we used to have to sit, let me see if I can get you guys in a good position. We used to have to sit like this, and come forward until your body just kind of like lets go and you drop, right? I don't know if you've ever experienced that where you've been stretching in some way and then all of a sudden your body just sort of lets go. There is a place for that again if you're trying to correct something, but say you did that before a workout or before, going and doing some kind of physical activity. That is your brain kind of like tuning out. It goes, ooh, and it kind of turns off, and it doesn't really remember that it's gone there, that it's done that. And then you go all and do this physical activity, assuming that you've, done some work and some warming up per se prior to going into your physical activity, but your brain doesn't have that connection because you pushed it to the point where it sort of turned off. So not great before exercises or before doing some, other movement, either a workout or if you're going to go play sports or whatever. It's not generally that great to do just that sort of isolated stretch. But the reason that I love resistance band stretching so much is because there's almost like a continuous involvement, I guess, of your brain, right? Because you're stretching, there's resistance, sort of both sides of, say you're stretching your leg or something, your hamstring and your quad, they're both sort of working, there's a synergy between them to either stretch or produce resistance, right? And it helps your brain to kind of remain connected throughout that stretch. And the same thing goes if you have just dynamic stretching, right? Where you're moving as you're stretching something. There's still that connection. So all of these different kinds of stretching that you can begin to incorporate into your day, depending on what your needs are. So another thing to keep in mind too, before you just start stretching, is to really begin to acknowledge why you're tight in the first place, okay? Because a lot of people will just start stretching out an issue, not realizing that maybe it would be more beneficial to really stabilize something. So I'll give you an example. If you have like hip pain or, which is very typical sort of, not only for women post-pregnancy, but also because we sit a lot, right? So hip pain is not something that's, nobody has, a lot of people have it. But is it a problem where we're tight, or is it a problem where we're potentially not stabilizing right? And I mean, each case is going to be a little bit different, but if you're constantly going through something and you're not stabilizing properly to begin with, you could stretch it out and feel good momentarily, but then the second you go right into your everyday again, and that's the way that you're moving or the habits that you have, then suddenly it's just going to go right back to where it was. So really beginning to be aware of, where do we have these problems? Where are we tight all the time? And then what's the real issue, right? And I'm going to give you a really big hint here as to why sometimes we can be super tight all the time and wondering how to kind of get out of that. Because there's generally sort of like two phases. We have some of us are yes people. We're very much open. We want to try new things. We're excited about new things. We have this sort of positive outlook when it comes to our perception of the world and reality and our experience of it. And other people are kind of like no people, right? It's just no. Every time you want to do something new, they're like, I don't think so. There's just sort of this negative outlook or negative perception of the reality, right? And know that, wherever you're at, if you know that you're a no person or you have no tendencies, then your natural body positioning is in no. It's like you're braced, you're tensed. You're constantly saying no, right? So even if you kind of stretch out for a bit, right, and you go through some of these stretches and you feel kind of good, your brain and your sort of emotional perception is still going to be saying no, and you're still going to go right back into that. It's like you come forward, your head comes forward, everything comes forward, and because your brain has that sort of emotional habit going on, then it's even actually sending messages that are going to kind of continue this and snowball it, because it's sending energy into this position. So when we talk about how your body really does mirror the thoughts that you have to understand that these negative things, if you're walking around like that, your body is literally going to walk around like that, because that's where your brain is sending energy. So really have a look at, why do we need to stretch so much? Like sometimes, yes, we just want to stretch to feel some relief after a workout. You've been using your muscles and stuff and it feels nice, it feels good. But if there's some chronic stuff going on, then let's really take a look at, where is this coming from? And what is that connection? And what is my mind telling my body to do every day and reinforcing every single day? Okay, so that is my big blurb about stretching coming out. About water, by the way, another thing is, if you are remotely dehydrated, you will not be able to stretch well. Your stretching that you do won't be as effective. Okay, very different from something else that I'll chat a little bit about. If you notice while you are stretching, I'm going to tell you to breathe all the time. Obviously, while you're stretching, I'm a big believer in the breath anyways, to calm you down. But if you start to notice that you get a little dry mouth during your stretching, it's a big indicator that you're stress breathing while you're stretching. Come back into the diaphragm and maybe don't push so hard, because you don't need to be pushing all that hard to be getting a stretch by any means. But you do need to be very aware that you are relaxed, right? If your muscles are all active and crazy and you try and stretch them out, it's not going to work as well. They're going to probably jump right back into that very activated state the second that you get up and you get out of the stretch, okay? Same reason that stretching right after a really hard workout, while it might feel nice and feel good, chances are, because your body is in such an active state, that the second you get up from the stretch, it's going to jump right in. So while it feels good, if you really do want to do some therapy to your muscles, wait for about 4 hours after a hard workout. Allow your body to come back down, your metabolism to come back down, so that you can get a decent stretch. Okay. All of that said, that was a really long 8-minute crazy introduction into stretching. But I also want to let you know that in thinking about this a little bit more in depth, I think I might actually turn this into a bit of a series. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to teach you a lot more about stretching, about the sort of different connections that our organs, our emotions and stuff have to different tightness, stiffness, or overactivation within the body. And so we'll go over that over the next few weeks. Okay, so let's get started. Do note, I'll try and let you know that if at any point, if you have things like, you have maybe a sciatica issue or something like that, some of these might not feel perfect and lovely, so don't do them. I'll try and let you know what those are. I try and keep to my list so I don't go and start to go a little too crazy and showing you guys too much stuff for today. But let's start right here. We're going to do things that open up the hips a lot first because it's generally a big problem. So our hips and up through the chest become a giant problem. So just to start, let's get some dynamic movement. So we're going to sit here, and all I want you to do is we're just going to drop one leg at a time, okay? And even with me, my hips click all the time when I do this because it's an area for me that's a bit sensitive, right? I had a pubic bone symphysis after my pregnancy, which means the joint there kind of began to split, and then I put it under weight and it began to split a lot more, which caused me a lot of pain. So I'm a little bit sensitive in this area. Which means I didn't move it for a very long time because I was scared to hurt something. So if any of you have the experience or feel that experience, take it slow and be aware, listen to your body. If you're still having issues there, maybe this one isn't for you, okay? But we're just gonna begin by opening up the hip a bit there. Okay, so you wanna do about 20 of these, okay? Just get to a point where you feel fairly loose and stuff there. Okay, second one, you can just turn over onto your side. I'm just going to put my arm under my head. If you have a pillow or something that you'd like to do, that's fine too. Let's keep the feet together. Knees are basically together, and all I want you to do is rock this hip forward and back. So we're coming forward and back, forward and back. So what this does is loosen up not only the muscles through your hip here, but also it lubricates the joint, okay? Which is going to make you feel delicious, especially if you sit a lot throughout the day. Or you've had babies, which is all of us, okay? So really get a lot of movement through there. The idea is to really begin to open up that hip. So for here, you can do about 10 or 15 on each side. Make sure always, obviously, that you're keeping this equal on either side. So again, feet are together, and I'm just moving that top thigh back and forth, okay? Always remember to continue to breathe from the diaphragm as much as possible because you want to remain in a parasympathetic state, that rest, digest, relax state while you're stretching. Otherwise, again, your muscles are all like this, and the point of your stretch or your mobilization is just not going to happen, right? Because you're just in that sympathetic state. Okay, next one. You're going to be sitting, legs crossed, hold on to them sort of here. And what you're going to do is kind of walk on your sits bones. So you're just walking forward. You notice your ankle in each foot. So if I'm moving my right sits bone, my right ankle is going to move in conjunction with that. So this not only opens up and stretches out your hips, it also works on those stabilizing muscles to be able to strengthen and to start to program your mind to use all of that stuff properly. So we get very sort of conditioned from sitting and stuff to be in one place, and maybe if you're typing all the time with one hand, you might be leaning more over onto one side, or if you always sit with your leg crossed over on one side, all of this stuff going on in your hips is always going to be in an imbalance and continuously reinforced, right? So we want to try and begin to restabilize and re-strengthen those muscles in the proper way. So that would be the third one that we're going to do. The next one, if you watched my original stretching videos, I love to stretch through the hips, but this is a sort of next step. It's called 90-90. So I want you to put your legs in 90 degree, okay? Foot in 90 degree here, and a 90 degree here, with your foot in the 90 degree here, okay? So the first thing that I want you to do, I want you to kind of have a bit of a lordosis, so a little bit of a curve in your back, because I don't want you to come forward at all. I want you to keep your back nice and straight with almost a little bit of a curve back there. You're gonna put one hand just on the front front of your leg, and I want you to think about this in 3 parts. So there's sort of that front leg if you went right over your knee, there's if you went over the sort of mid of your shin, and there's if you go over the ankle. This hand in the back, I want you to kind of turn it out a little bit and put it on the ground, because if you turn it in and you're like this, it kind of makes you, encourages you to go forward. I want you to stay out. So we're going to turn that hand out so you can see it there as you're doing this, because that's going to keep you upright. You're going to put one hand here, and then we're just going to come forward as much as you can in that position. Now, a lot of you, this is it. You're not going to get to the second or third positions, okay, because it can be very, very tight. And the second you start to drop over, you really want to pull that back hand further out. Hold on to your stability here and just get that stretch, okay? Once you've hit that spot, I want you to press your knee and press your foot into the ground, okay? So this changes it just from that static stretch where you're just holding it and gives you that sort of activation on the other side, okay? So it makes it a more effective stretch because your brain is really connected, okay? Come up from that, and if you can, begin to shift a little bit further. Now, if you can't, again, don't worry, okay? When you hit that spot, press the foot, press the knee into the ground to get that additional stretch, okay? And then if you're able to, you can bring that over to each side. Now, remember, remember you're going to want to do this on both sides as well. There's a second part to that, though, so before I move out of this, I want you now to think of coming laterally. Laterally means to the side, so we're going to turn to the opposite knee, remaining in those 90-degree angles, and I just want you to do a quick little movement here, okay, just forward, then you're going to come back, and all I want you to do is dip and lift the hip from here, okay? Get a lot of movement through those hips, and press forward and back, okay? So you get a lot of movement, and this is, you know, I might make this look a little bit easy right now, but from a lot of you, that'll be a difficult thing to do, okay? And then you're going to come back up. This toe is now going to point, and I want you to try to lift this knee. So up and down with the knee. Go to the point that, you know, feels good and feels like it's stretching for you, okay? Get a few of those in, and then you're going to switch sides. So just to remember, recap, we're going to start forward. That hand is going to come out. Use this for some support. Have some lordosis, so a curve in your back, and you're going to come forward at one of the 3 points, or all of them if that's what you can do. And then we come laterally, and then we're going to come out, do that hip dip, and then open up the hip that way, okay? So I will give you the notes on all of these so that you can remember how to do those when you go ahead and switch it to the other side. Okay, the next one we'll move into the groin. So let's see where we're at sort of in the front of the hip, okay? So what I want you to do with this one, and again, be careful if you have any issues either with diastasis of your lower abs or any issues through your pubic bone, depending on where you're at post-pregnancy. Do this with caution. So just understand that that can be a thing. So first of all, I want you to just kind of rest with your toes almost together there in the back. And I want you to tuck the tailbone under, okay? So we're not like this, we're tucked. Right? Tuck the tailbone under to start, okay? And then you're gonna just come forward and the feet can, you know, come out and back a little bit. And then what I want you to do from here, remaining tucked, so notice how I'm not dipped, I'm still tucked. We're gonna windshield wiper the back legs, tucking that tailbone still, okay? And if you notice there's, you know, one side or the other that's tighter, dip into it and stay in there for a minute. So wherever your body is at and wherever, you know, whatever works for you to get a good stretch, really focus on that area, okay? And get a lot of really great movement through the hips there. Okay. Anything else that I wanted to do on that? No. Okay, so let's move into the next one. This is the spine stretch. I was going to bring down something fairly light, you need something in your hands here. It does not have to be heavy at all. I'm actually just going to grab a, you can do this with a ball, like a basketball or whatever you want. It doesn't have to be, I'm just going to use this pad because I don't know that I have my really light weights here. But what we're going to do with this is a spine stretch. So again, so many of us sit a lot throughout the day. So just grab something you can use, like a yoga block, even a basketball. If you have a really light medicine ball, any of that will work. And you're going to come up onto your ball so that you're resting on your neck and shoulders, okay? And that everything else is just parallel to the ground here, okay? So grab your block or ball or whatever it is that you have in your hands. And what you want to do is, as your hands come up and forward, you're going to drop your hips. Okay, so you drop the hips and you open up, and then you're going to come right back up and over, okay? So this is a spine stretch, and I encourage you to breathe big time, and then as you're doing this, to really open up the front of your body, the front of your abs, and kind of put your spine in the opposite direction than it is typically going, right? So we're always kind of kind of bent in a C, but forward. So let's try to do that almost like a C, but backwards, okay? So opening up, big stretch. You should feel it. The heavier your object is, obviously you'll feel more through the chest and all through here, but you don't want to go super heavy, especially in the beginning when you're getting used to this, okay? So do that one. What you want to do is kind of take 3 to 5 seconds to get there, hold for 3 seconds, and then come back up. Okay, so again, these are not done fast. They're just done with the breath almost, okay? And if you notice that breath creeping up either into your chest or you get a little bit of dry mouth, you know you're probably beginning to stress breathe. And that is not the point of the stretch in the first place. Okay, so let's move on into some neck stretches. So the other big key area that everyone is very tight in, oops, that's not a good placement, often is the neck and shoulders. I'm just going to pop my hair up a little bit here so that we can really, really see that. You know, like that, well, people call it a billion different things now, but like the texting neck or whatever that is, we're so far, far, far forward. And again, this is, you know, sort of a symptom of people who have that no to the world, very negative perception of the world. Is that you'll see that sort of the neck comes forward and they're kind of like in that weird bracing mode, right? So this is another way of helping you sort of deal with that. So the very first thing, and you can do this standing, it'll probably be a lot easier in the beginning, is to open up the hands. So begin to think about always opening up. If you're standing like this, you notice your posture and stuff is like this, you're automatically closed off. So that's why we want to encourage you to open up. And when you do this, your ribs sit directly over your hips and you're generally in alignment. So that's where you want to start this stretch from. And don't force it. Don't feel like you have to squeeze everything back. Just open up in sort of a relaxed way and get yourself in alignment to start, okay? Then I want you're going to hold kind of your face, I guess, and just kind of hold it in position. And then you're going to grab the back of the neck, and then you're going to gently sort of pull it down. So this is going to push down, and the back hand is going to pull up. So almost like you're getting some traction in the muscles between, you know, your skull and the back of your neck, okay? So you're going to do that on one side, remaining in alignment, and then you'll switch it over, open up first, make sure you're there, and try with the other hand, okay? Opening up the neck. Now I really want you to think about breathing in and opening it up. And then as you breathe out, you're just going to actually let it all go, okay? The next one from there is literally just a lateral stretch. So, sorry, again, let's open up to start. So you're in there, and you want to be releasing all through here. Now, I carry all of my tension in here. So these stretches are amazing for me, along with the breath, right? Because it begins to realign your body, get you in a place where this doesn't happen quite as much. Okay, so you're going to go on one side laterally, and then you're going to go on the other side. So you want to be pressing down with both shoulders. So you're thinking about squishing this ear into that side, but you're also at the same time really pressing down with both of those shoulders. Okay, the next place you want to go with this is you're going to look down, so kind of turn your head, find that spot, and look down this way. So this is going to stretch out your levator scapula. Okay, and what that means is it's basically what elevates your scapula, those muscles right back there. And they can get super, super tight, as you all probably can feel when just doing anything, just sitting there doing computer work, doing whatever it is. Life these days, it gets super, super tight. Now, something to be said about this too. I love to stretch out the neck and do all of that stuff, and it really helps you to begin to come back up, but also realize that half of the time when we are so pulled forward like this, it's because the chest is so tight. So while stretching out the back does give you some, a relief from whatever the symptom is of that, realize that it's because the chest is so tight. So you can go back into my other two videos and I show you a bunch of stretches to open up the chest so that you can begin to reprogram not using your chest for everything. And again, the breath that we have been working on is going to help you with that as well. Okay, the very last thing that I want to go through is a squat with breath. So it's a breathing squat. I'm going to try and find a good spot for me to do this. So you guys already know about the breath. Our final position is just like this. So your hands are, let me see if you can really see me. Actually, maybe I'll put you on the ground. That's probably a better place. Our final position is here, okay? So you want to be not so close that you can't get down, not so far that it's a little bit awkward, but just kind of in a regular squat where you're coming down comfortably and your hands are ultimately going to touch the ground, okay? So what I want you to do first, get the breath going, okay? Breathe in, you're gonna breathe out on the way down. Breathe in on the way up, okay? So it's really about your breath and opening up the hips and getting to that really nice, comfortable place where we are in balance. Now, part of this, and I'll chat about it actually before we go into it, part of this and why we're so tight through the hips is often security issues. So if you have fears around different security issues in your life, you'll have a tendency to be very tight through there. And that can be a bunch of things. That can be relationships. That can be financial. We hold that fear and that stress in our hips. And so often that's why they can become so tight. It is really heavily connected to that emotion, okay? So while you're doing this, I want you to consider and think about a mantra. The mantra is, I am safe, I am whole, I am home. And you're going to say that as you are coming down. So it would look like, I am safe, I am home, I am whole. You can say this in your head, you can say it out loud because it's on the breath out. Then you're going to breathe in. I am safe, I am home, I am whole. I am safe, I am home, I am whole. That way, you are connecting both the emotional stretch and the actual physical stretch as you're doing it. And again, you're allowing your body and your mind to really understand what exactly it is you're trying to do, what you're trying to stretch so that you can get the greatest benefit out of it, right? Because there's no point stretching out through your hips and doing all of that work just to, walk away from your session and go right back into all of those, fears or stressors that you might have, and then getting all locked up again, okay? So that was the first part. I hope that those stretches, give you some relief and that you enjoy doing them. And I'm going to go through over the next few weeks some more really interesting facts about stretching, both benefits and just actually really teaching you about stretching in a greater capacity so that, again, you understand and you're able to continue your momentum. So it's really great coming off of this week's call to be able, I think, to go through this and understand this portion of your transformation. So have a lovely Saturday. Thank you. Go ahead and get your stretches on.